Okay, so here we are on to factorising difference of two squares. So difference of two squares, what we can see in general below, we can see here I've got two numbers that are squared, or two things that are squared, our a squared and b squared, and they are being taken away from each other, which makes it a difference. So that's how to identify when it's one of these types of things. So I've got two square numbers and there's a minus sign. And it has a nice little trick for factorising where we square root each of them. And the key thing is that they're also in the same order. So A was at the start here. So A is at the start of my brackets. And B squared is at the end. So B is at the end. So I've square rooted them all. And then it's going to be a plus in one bracket and a minus in another. And that is what we're going to do for every single one of our questions. So again, I square root the a squared, and that goes at the front of the bracket because it's at the front in the beginning. And I square root the b squared and it goes to the back. And then I just change the sign. So I have a plus in one and a minus in another. So applying that, I've got x squared minus 100. So square root of x squared is x. Square root of 100 is 10. And I have a plus in one and a minus in another. And something to be aware of, it doesn't matter what way round you do your plus and your minus. Because if you think about it, if you were to multiply a normal number, 2 times 3 for instance, 2 times 3 is 6, but 3 times 2 is also 6. So the bracket, doesn't matter what way around it is, as long as they are different, so they are alternating, and you do have the correct thing in the correct spot. Okay, next one. So square root of 64 is 8. Square root of m squared is m. And then I'll have a plus and a minus. Okay, question 3. So here I've got 16b squared. Now, the best way I like to think of this is I look at the number first, and then I look at the letter. So 16, so the square root of 16 is 4. Then the square root of b squared is b. And then square root of 9 is 3. And then changing the sign. So let's look at another one where I do that. So I've got 36y squared. So firstly, square root of 36 is 6. Square root of y squared is y. Then the square root of 49 is 7. And the square root of z squared is z. And then alternating the signs. Okay. So here we've got a little bit more complexity it's going to go on. Now we always have to keep in mind our order of factorization. Always, when you're being told to factorize something, look for the common factor. So remember, a common factor is where you have a single bracket and there is one thing that you can divide everything in that expression by. So we're going to take it out. Then we do our difference of two squares, which is what we've just been doing. I'm going to just draw a square. Difference of two squares. And we'll come on to number 3 in the next video. So, I'm being told to factorize this. And the first thing I'll do, I'll go, right, can I identify a common factor? So looking at this first one, I've got 90 take away 10v squared. Well, I can divide both 90 and 10 by 10. So I'm going to take 10 out as my common factor. And then 90 divided by 10 is going to be 9. And then that would just be take away v squared. I could have 1v squared, but it really doesn't add anything. So I'm going to leave it. And then what you must always do is then check to see if any of the remaining factorization is possible. Or even check to see if you can common factorize it again if you've missed something out. So I'm looking at that and I go, right, that 9, I can square root 9. I can square root v squared, and there's a minus sign. That means I've got my difference of two squares. So it's going to separate out into two brackets like so. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of v squared is v. Then I'll have a plus and a minus. And that's my answer done. One last one. So I've got 8p squared minus 50f squared. So the common factor there is 2. I can divide them both by 2 because they're even. And it's the highest one. Nothing else will go into it. So I'm going to have 2 on the outside. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So it's going to be 4p squared. 50 divided by 2 is 25. That'll be 25f squared. Then again, I look at each thing individually for checking. So I can square root 4. I can square root p squared. I can square root 25. I can square root f squared. And there's that minus. So that means I've got my difference of two squares. And you see how easy it is just to look at each thing individually. I find it much better to look at the number, then the letter, rather than looking at as one big thing, because it can get easy to lose something in the process. So square root of 4 is 2. Square root of p squared is p. Square root of 25 is 5. And then square root of f squared is f. And then I change the sign. And that's all you need to know for difference of two squares. Let me know if there are any issues, and good luck with the work.